Hi, I'm Alex Sogno, aside of leading a global asset solution, which is an independent hotel asset management company. I'm managing also the International Luxury Hotel Association for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. And we organize webinar monthly and targeted towards the luxury hotel industries. And this month we are looking at human resources and how to attract talent and retain them. That's the biggest challenge with us as owners, but also operators. Mumford will cover and take care of this panel today, and we'll let him introduce the full panel. So there you go.
Thank you, Alex. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the panel, Power to the People, How to Attract and Retain Talent. My name is Chris Mumford. I'm Managing Director at Cervus Leadership Consulting, and I'm delighted to be leading our conversation today as we explore one of the most pressing, probably the most pressing challenges facing our sector today. The difficulties, as we all know, of attracting and retaining talent in the hospitality industry are not new. They've been around for as long as I can remember. But there's certainly no question that the pandemic, the COVID pandemic we've been through has intensified these difficulties very sharply indeed. You know, we lost workers to other sectors during the lockdowns. We then had the pressure cooker effect of the industry reopening en masse, all looking for staff at the same time. Mobility of workforce is reduced. We've got new attitudes of work-life flexibility, which have altered employees' expectations and desires. So a lot of things going on. And it seems to be universal. I speak with hospitality businesses daily around the globe, and everybody seems to be experiencing the same pain pretty much. So I guess the good news is we're all in the same boat, but the question is, what do we do about it? So to help find hopefully some solutions and some ideas today, I'm very pleased to be joined by some esteemed leading experts in the hospitality sector. And I'll now ask them to introduce themselves. Perhaps Bryan, if we could start with you and then go to Martin and Michelle.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Just to introduce myself, so I'm Bryan Grierson, and I'm the Operations Director for a UK-based national hospitality, leisure and tourism charity called Springboard. And we've been in operation now for 32 years, and we were formed because there wasn't enough homegrown talent coming through the pipeline into the sector, and part of our mission and vision is to future-proof the talent pipeline for the hospitality, leisure and tourism sector. So looking forward to the meeting this afternoon.
I'm Martin MacPhail. I'm the Human Resources Director for RBH Hospitality Management. We're an independent hotel management company with around 50 hotels in the UK. I'm responsible for creating and ensuring that people strategy is delivered both in our corporate offices and our managed properties. And like many others, our current focus is on recruitment and retention.
And I'm Michelle Crosby. I'm an industrial organizational psychologist by formal education. I've spent half my career in consulting and half in corporate HR leadership roles, most notably for this purpose as global CHRO for both Fairmont Hotels and also for Starwood Hotels. And so have grappled with issues around recruiting and retention, both from the inside and in partnering with a number of different hospitality organizations in my consulting practice.
Thank you very much. So I'd like to start off by looking at things kind of macro sector-wide basis, and then we can start to drill into what this means for individual businesses. But Martin, maybe if we could start with you, this assumption or statement that nobody really wants to work in hospitality anymore. How true or otherwise do you see that from your side?
Well, what I'm seeing at the moment is, the hospitality historically in the UK anyway hasn't had a fantastic reputation. And I think the pandemic with the closing of hotels, opening of hotels, closing and opening has not helped our industry. Absolutely, there is room to turn this around, and I think we are slowly turning it around, but there's still a hell of a lot of work to be done on that. the perception of the industry can be changed, but it needs a concerted effort, I feel.
Michelle, would you concur from that from a more North American standpoint?
Well, I think that certainly the pandemic has created challenges in an industry that had some challenges to begin with. I actually think the hospitality industry has a fantastic story to tell about a career within hospitality. And if you look at senior executives in most hospitality companies, and I've worked with many, and you trace their roots back to entry-level roles, and there's lots of examples of people working their way up based on their hard work and dedication and willingness to learn into more and more senior management roles. And I think that's a really fantastic story that most industries don't have. And I don't think we've done a great job of telling it. And that becomes a really important opportunity going forward.
So is there an opportunity there? I mean, I have the frustration that the industry doesn't message as an industry. Every business is kind of doing their own thing. There's no collective voice. But Bryan, I'm thinking of organizations like yours and Springboard, where I know you're kind of targeting, you know, the young population, those entering work maybe for the first time. You know, how, I guess, difficult or easy a sell is, you know, hospitality among all the other options they have.
Yeah, I think, you know, when we talk about hospitality, and I know that it's been heavily impacted by COVID and the pandemic. However, I think with every negative comes a positive. Does that make sense? You know, we've never been in the spotlight so much and in the media and all that sort of stuff, sort of promoting the hospitality sector, you know, and how quick it's going to sort of recover and bounce back. Now, actually, when we talk about like future-proofing a talent pipeline of people, to me, you know, it's not a quick fix, it's a long-term plan where a lot of organizations sort of have to come together, almost to work together, creating that pipeline from the people within, from those kids in schools and colleges and things like that, getting them to come through the ranks by inspiring them and whetting their appetite to sort of come in and work within the sector, you know. And like Michelle had mentioned, you know, that there's so much opportunity for people who come to work within the sector, and that's from learning lots of different roles. You know, when they join the organisation, they have the opportunity to travel the world. You know, where some people say there's a lot of negative things regarding the sector, there's also a lot of positives as well. You have a lot of flexible working and flexible contracts, and I think there has been a lot of work and a lot of progress towards turning some of those negative things into positives. And that's where we have to sort of target that to the younger generation as well. So they can look on it as a career and not just a quick fix before they get a real job, so to speak. Because actually, if they come in and learn their trade and their craft, it can be a very fruitful career that can give them endless opportunity, is what I would say.
So how do we capture those hearts and minds? I mean, how young do we go? Are you kind of into schools and trying to?
Yeah, I mean, I believe that, you know, you need to be targeted. Initially, we work with kids from sort of 12 years up is the sort of target age group that we work with. And what we would generally say is that you need to have 2 to 3 interventions per year, positive interventions to sort of plant the seed within the sector and to sort of whet their appetite, so they'll sort of come back for more. And it's more a bit of an inspirational piece, you know. For example, where you take them out, get them to meet people from the industry, for example, bring it to life, and also finding different ways. You know, we're actually going down the road now of looking at things in a virtual world as well, where we bring to life like a virtual hotel and so on, which actually really attracts the mindset of the younger generation, and sort of keeps them engaged. But I mean, and then the plan will be also to sort of start working with the younger children as well. But at the moment, we sort of start from 12 years up.
I mean, Martin, what's an organisation like yours doing, or others that you may know of, in terms of, you know, not necessarily filling immediate needs that you have in your organisation today, but this kind of bigger picture of, you know, promoting the sector?
I think going back to the point previously made, you know, it needs that collective effort. You know, we all try our own things and do our own bits as a company, but, you know, in order for us to really longer term have an industry that is seen as a career, it does need a concerted effort. But what we're doing, we target our hotels in, partnering with a school or a college in the local area, teaming up with the likes of Springboard in the community as well, to really, highlight the benefits of working in hotels and hospitality, and how you can quickly carve out a career in hospitality, because you can very quickly step up the ladder in hospitality without having degrees and qualifications and so on and so forth. So yeah, we're very much on the track of ensuring all of our hotels that we manage are partnered up with a school or a college, and having that link and that relationship, and really trying to get to the parents as well, because the parents have to be advocates of hospitality as well for us to stand any chance.
And then in terms of kind of, I guess, once you got them hooked to the education and training piece, I mean, I know, there's countries like Germany have long had, apprenticeship schemes which seem to work quite well for them. Is that something that more countries should look to adopt? Do we have, the right kind of educational framework? I mean, Michelle, I don't know how it is in, North America, and Bryan, it'd be interesting to hear from your standpoint.
Well, I actually think there's an opportunity on the side of the hospitality industry to be a little more open-minded about how we think about what qualified looks like. And I think can get a little hung up sometimes on what hotel school did someone go to, and there's lots of capable people out there with bachelor's degrees and things that aren't very applied or useful that could certainly make a transition into hospitality management, I think, with not that much difficulty, because the apprentice model lives everywhere, right? Whether it's a formal apprenticeship or not, that's how people learn and grow in the hotel industry. And I think that at least as Americans, so I can only speak from that side, we've been rather closed-minded about who were the people that we're looking for as entry-level managers, for example. And there's a lot of great talent in the frontline roles that could get tapped for management development programs in ways we have not traditionally thought about. I've been involved in a couple such efforts in my work. And as I said, also thinking about people who are not of the hospitality industry, but could quickly learn and apply, whether they're recent college grads, or maybe they're working in an adjoining sector like retail or restaurant service, where there's, again, kind of that applicability of the customer service piece, and just being a little more open-minded about what we're looking for when we go hiring at some of these different levels, and that there's different ways to get there.
Bryan, do you have any perspective on the education piece from, obviously, Springboard? As we were just talking, Springboard's running courses year in, year out, trying to help with the qualification side of things.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about like the education piece, first of all, like all the work that we do with schools, like for the UK, we all make sure it's measured against the sort of GAPSB benchmarks, which means that, it fits into the school curriculum, so to speak, which means all those resources and everything are all available there for the teachers and stuff to sort of pick up and use the material that's already sort of provided for them, which is a sort of godsend for those teachers that are delivering the class schedules. I think there's a lot of work still to be done around apprenticeships. I think, sometimes I think there's a little bit of a negative stigma around apprenticeships, and sometimes people think apprenticeships are only necessarily maybe for younger people that are entering the sector. But actually apprenticeships open up, a massive opportunity to people, and actually for maybe there's a bit of an educational piece as well with some employers around apprenticeships to help them to get up to speed and understand it a little bit more, and understand the opportunity that it can give the individuals, because once you start some of those individuals on that apprenticeship journey, then they're going to be potentially a team member that's retained for a longer period of time, because they're getting that little bit more of an investment put into them, you know, they're learning new skills and qualifications, which at the end of the day, you don't have to go to university. You know, your apprenticeship levels can balance out to the same as a degree, whilst learning on the job at the same time. So, you know, it's an absolute amazing opportunity for a lot of people, and I don't think it's shouted about enough.
Yeah, thanks. So picking up on recruitment, which Martin, you said is kind of your, I guess, all-day focus these days. You know, picking up on what Michelle just said around perhaps non-traditional sources of talent. You know, where are you looking? Where, you know, have you got examples of perhaps new sources of talent that we could tap or look into, and maybe, you know, bring a more open-minded approach than we've traditionally, you know, adopted in the space?
Just exploring anything we possibly can, and we talk about the young, the school age people and the school leavers, for example. But you know, there's so many different targeted groups out there that need the message and the attraction needs to be tailored to suit those particular groups. For example, you know, there's a huge over 50-year-old group to target as well, but their needs and wants will differ from a school leaver, for example. There are the recently retired who may wish to pick up some part-time work again. There is the homeless. You know, there's so many different target groups out there that ourselves, and I would imagine there's so many other hospitality organisations that are doing the same, and just trying to, you know, to try and attract people into the business. And as Michelle and Bryan said, you know, in terms of the quality, it don't need those qualifications, they don't need the bachelor's degrees and things like that. A lot of it is to do with the passion, the desire, the personality of the individual to work in a hotel or a pub or a restaurant.
So Michelle, are you seeing that on the ground, kind of, you know, with clients starting to adopt a more, you know, open-minded approach, to not worried so much about qualifications, but bringing in the right attitude and therefore broadening out the, you know, the talent pool?
Yes, I think out of necessity they've had to, but I think that, you know, really great hoteliers know this, right? They've known for a long time that it's about service orientation and who are you as a person and your willingness to work hard and learn. And I've heard general managers say, I can take anyone that has that right stuff and turn them into not just a great frontline employee, but ultimately a great manager. And so I think we do, as an industry, we know that, right? We've known it forever. It's how we think about our business. And so I think it's a little bit kind of coming back to our roots of what really matters. And, you know, frankly, it's a lot easier to teach someone the technical skills of hospitality than it is to teach someone who should just never interact with the general public how to do that effectively. So I'll take the first bet any day.
Martin, what are you seeing as the barriers then to recruit? I mean, you know, what's stopping us being able to hire more? Is it, you know, and I'm kind of leading down the pay route here. So I had, you know, 2 meetings yesterday back to back, one with both hotel operating groups, companies. One had just got approval to put in another pay rise, second one this year across the organization. And then the meeting right after, the CEO has basically said, enough is enough, this is unsustainable, we're not increasing any more pay for the foreseeable future. So kind of 2, you know, differing approaches, but, you know, is obviously pay has a part, and I guess some of this was overdue, but, you know, what else is it about to be successful in recruiting people?
I think you're right, it is overdue. We all have, I think, put the wages up, and rightly so. But that CEO you mentioned rightly says that enough's enough. We can't just keep continually putting wages up because it is unsustainable. The other things we have to concentrate on to make us attractive and help us retain people is about the actual culture of the workplace. You know, if you're looked after, if you're cared for, if there's health and well-being considered, if there's different resources that help with whether it's, health and well-being, mental health, financial well-being, all the different perks that go into the workplace that don't necessarily have to cost an awful lot of money. But the workplace's attitude towards diversity and inclusion as well, and ESG as well. All those things add up to the employer value proposition, if you will, to make it more attractive for a candidate. So it shouldn't, and it's not all about money.
Michelle, what have you seen around pay in your world, and is it, who's driving that? Because obviously I'm thinking of the dynamics of our sector where you've got owners typically now and a management company, and who's driving that, who's calling the shots?
So I agree with all the comments that Martin made. One, I do think it's overdue, and in some ways it's been a little bit of a reality check to the industry of, if you want the talent, you need to be competitive from a pay point of view. I think, as always, there's this tension between owners and operators is real, and as always, there are owners who are more progressive in their thinking, in my view, what I would describe as progressive, and understand that hanging rooms is, because you don't have people to clean them, is far worse than making pay adjustments to get the staff in order to make sure the hotel can be successful. But I think it's a mixed bag out there in terms of what owners are willing to do financially. But I think that when it gets serious enough, dire enough in terms of its effect on the operation, people do understand that you have to make those kind of pay concessions. But I also agree with Martin that money is necessary but not sufficient, right? If you'll go across the street for another 50 cents an hour, then we're doing something wrong, right? One of the most important things in culture, at least in my experience, is the manager, the first line supervisors, the person that you work for creates your experience of working within that hotel or within that company. And if they're not doing the right things, you can hire all day, but if everyone's running out the back door as soon as you bring them in the front door, then you're not doing anything to help yourself. So getting a stronger focus, and some have a fantastic focus on culture, but I think that there are organizations have some opportunity to kind of raise the bar on the value proposition that they're offering to people. And to me, that really starts with leadership.
Chris, may I intervene here? As asset manager, we work between owners and operators. And one thing that I tell the owners is the hotel industry is simple. You have a hardware, your hotel, your physical building, and the software. Sorry, it's kind of everybody knows that, but not everybody. And the software is more important than your hardware. It's your business, and that's what I told them during the crisis. We need to keep our team entertained. We need to train them when they are at home. We need to train them. We need to create new plans to improve all the system, whether it's in the spa or HR and everything. It's really something that we need to cherish, because the hardware may be broken, may be old, but if you have a great software, the client will be happy. And when we speak about hospitality, and especially luxury hospitality, this is crucial. You can have a fantastic experience in Europe in the old palace, but it's old and it's not up to standard like in Dubai, but you have a fantastic experience. On the contrary, you can be in a new building, brand new, I won't give any names, but brand new 5-star hotels, and have the worst experience in your life. And that's what the owners need to understand, that software is more important than your hardware. I think lots of operators, the top operators, really understand that. Guys like Four Seasons, they've been rewarded best employers because they understand really the importance of this. And the few travel that I did, especially airlines, it's becoming really bad. The software is really bad, and in some hotels you can really see this, that they didn't take care of the software, and now they are suffering and of not hiring people and everything. It's something that we need to keep in mind as owner and operators.
I find that when the conversation starts to get about building culture, particularly with smaller organizations, there seems to be a bit of this instinctive sucking of, intake of breath, as though, well, that's going to cost a bit of money. We haven't got the resources to do that. I only got 15 hotels, so I can't, implement something which, I don't quite understand. But Martin or Michelle, in particular, I'm thinking, building culture surely shouldn't cost a lot of money, should it?
It certainly doesn't need to. I don't think culture comes from having ping pong tables in the break room. Like those are gimmicks. That's not culture. Culture is about the unwritten rules of how we do things around here, right? What good behavior looks like in our organization, and not just values that we write on a piece of paper, but that we live every single day. And any organization can get clear about what they want their guest experience to look like, and how that needs to correspond with how they treat their own team members. And that's where it starts. It's really just, it's about people and, emotional connection, between the frontline associates and the guests, and equally importantly, emotional connection between the leaders and the frontline associates. And if you do those things right, the money will take care of itself. It's been proven over and over again in studies like Cervus profit chain, that if the leaders take care of the people take care of the guests, and the financial performance follows. And that doesn't require a big investment in stuff. It's really about a focus on human beings as human beings.
Just to reiterate what Michelle said, I don't believe it needs to take money thrown at it to create a culture. I quite often get asked, define culture and what is your culture? And I find it difficult to actually articulate, but we ask our team all the time, what do you believe to be our culture? And thankfully, what we get back is the words such as respect, flexibility, family, trust, all of these kind of words. And that, for me, that
I think we've lost Martin for a moment there.
I know that we're creating.
Can I add something? It's like, and the service industry start from the top, not from the bottom. It's like, if you have an owner that respect the operator, and then the operator take care of his employees on all frontline, this is when everything happen. And especially in luxury, you need to come from the top. I mean, quite often, I give you one example, is the garden of a resort is really well set up. It's amazing. They've been doing an amazing job. Well, the owner should write, well, we write a letter to the employees. And it's a wow factor that well, your job is really appreciated from the top level. And I think that's really important. We are in the service industry. Sorry, I would stop to intervene. Let you go.
No, keep going. Bryan, you have something you wanted to?
Just sort of following on, I agree 100% sort of what Michelle had said, and I think it's really, really important to sort of have like a people strategy sort of at the heart and at the core of any sort of organization, because to me that is the sort of wheels of the bus, so to speak, that keeps everything sort of operating. And something that I hear a lot of the time, we put people through employability programs, so we take them on that start of the journey, where we sort of give them confidence, skills. We then put them out into employment with various different partners now. And I know we've obviously came through a very challenging time, but when you get feedback that there's no time to train these people, then you obviously run into problems, and as organizations, if sometimes that's one of the barriers, then things are never going to improve, because if you don't train the people and support the people, then the whole thing's going to crumble and break down, so you can't be a one-man band, so to speak, probably is the best way to sort of sum it up. You need to invest in people, show them the direction in X, Y, and Z to then let them sort of lead the way.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do employees want these days? I mean, I believe I'm right in saying that 70% of the workforce by 2030 will be millennials, and obviously we've got, the younger generation behind that as well. And the pandemic has kind of thrown into not confusion, but into question, I guess, what a work relationship looks like or can look like these days. What are you seeing around? How's that making itself manifest in terms of what employees are looking for when they're coming to you, Martin, for a job, or Michelle, one of your clients, saying, what's important to them? Martin, do you want to go first?
Yeah, what we are seeing now is that job seekers are looking for an employer who does respect, diversity and inclusion. The environment and sustainability is massive now, and rightly so. And that we are finding job seekers look for that in the employer. Flexibility is another one as well they're looking for, because the pandemic's taught them that there's different focuses for them and different priorities for them out with the workplace. So these are just some things we are finding that job seekers are looking for in a workplace.
Yeah, I agree with Martin. I think that the focus on diversity and inclusion, on social and environmental responsibility are much stronger in the millennial generation than in previous ones. But at the same time, I still think the core of what people want from an employer is to feel like they have the opportunity to do the best that they can in a job that they're well suited for, and that they're treated well by their managers, that their opinions count, that they're heard. And those things cut across generations. So I think that there are a few sort of new items, if you will, on the employee value proposition checklist for this next generation that weren't felt as strongly in the past. But I don't think we should overlook the core of what always matters to build an engaged workforce. Because if you cut that data across age groups and generations, the results look the same. They still want that core sense of belonging.
Yeah, I was going to say they want to belong. Yeah, it's very important for them. Alex, if I could bring you into this part, the S. So we hear a lot about the E of ESG. Okay, it's all about the environment, saving the planet, etc., etc. But there's this other two components, the S and the G, and the S, the social, which is kind of talking about what we're talking about, and a company, an organization's social impact and so forth. I mean, you're close to investors, in the space. How much on their radar is this, or is it really kind of hidden in the shadow of the E?
I think lots of operators only focus on, when they report back to the owners, they focus on headlines, and P&Ls and EBITDA, but more and more they talk about this. And we try to impose as asset managers more ESG initiatives. And we're trying to push this a lot, because it's the only way we can retain staff. And if we have happy staff, I mean, that it gives you like this culture. And I totally agree with Michelle when she said, yeah, put a ping pong table won't help. It's about giving them the chance to do things, giving them empowerment, and especially with all the initiatives on environmental issues and everything. Now, when we have those monthly reviews with all our operators, we talk about this. It's like, hey, listen, let's stop plastic. And there is like people like opening their eyes, like, yeah, I want to be in charge of that. Let's make sure that all the product that we buy are bio or don't come from other countries, come locally. Yes, they're into this, and they love doing those kind of things. And it's not necessarily more expensive. And there is at least even a story behind when the chefs speak about the food that he serves. He knows, he can tell you, okay, this product come from this little farm that I visited with my team, and it's really important. And one last thing is during the lockdown, I told my team, it's like, okay, whoever want to come back to the hotel and work, let's come in, especially only the kitchen, but come in, and we're going to prepare food for the homeless, for the police, for the ER, and all the things. And it's those kind of initiatives coming from the owner and coming also from the operator, but it's the operator who had this idea, and we said as owners, like, go for it, use our kitchen for free, go for it. It creates this kind of bonding that maybe we call corporate culture, but it's like we do care, and it's visible throughout the process. And yes, we can be demanding sometimes because we need to perform and everything, but at the end, it's like, well, we did it together, you know.
Martin, how flexible is flexible working within your organization?
So very flexible. In the hotels, it's getting there. There's still work to be done. I think coupled with the fact that there's a struggle to fill positions makes it more difficult to be more flexible because there's the operation to be run, but it's not for a want of trying. Everyone recognizes that we need to be more flexible, and whether that's 4 days on, 3 days off, or shorter shifts, more time off type thing, that is recognized, and we are seeing changes happening now. But it's almost like a vicious cycle because a lot of properties are not fully manned because of the recruitment challenges. But it's absolutely recognised, and it's something that must happen when we can.
Right. And what about kind of cross-skill? I'm wondering, do we actually need as many people as we did before? And this, particularly the area of cross-skilling, and Bryan, I don't know if you've got thoughts on this, but having people, again, it's kind of opening it, it's being a bit more open-minded and broadening it up, as opposed to having someone siloed in one very particular role and function, but to get them to be able to do more things, which may make the job more interesting. Who knows? Bryan, what do you have views on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree. I think we live in a world now where people need to be a bit more multi-skilled and can sort of turn their hand to maybe more than one, to maybe one or more tasks. But it definitely sort of makes the variety of people's roles a bit more interesting, and helps to keep people engaged a little bit more. But I think as long as it's all, I think you obviously need to ensure you fully understand people's capabilities. You fully sort of understand what people are, what they're employed to do, what additional do they have to do, and as long as you've got the correct sort of learning and the sort of learning and development and plan and progress, for those people to upskill them and get them where they need to be, then to me that sort of ticks the box. I think if you just turn somebody around and say, we want you to do this tomorrow, but they're not trained to deliver that, then that could sort of have a real negative impact, and you could lose the staff member. But I think as long as it's put across in a positive meaning way for them, then yeah, I think it's definitely the sort of right direction for people to be utilised more. 100%.
Michelle, you seen that? I'm just thinking also, in unionized environments, as to how actually, how feasible is that?
Well, as we all know, union environments always pose more challenges than the opposite. But I do think, just to build on what Bryan was saying, it's also important that the individual understand how this ask of cross-training is ultimately beneficial to them. Because I think sometimes see that as, you're asking me to do more than my job, not understanding that actually the more skills, the more tools you have in your toolkit, the more valuable you are as an employee and the more options you have in your career. So I think taking some of the concepts that we've used for a long time in management development, where we help leaders understand that, if you rotate through, F&B and rooms, etc., you're broadening your abilities, and that's a good thing. We need to take that same approach in helping people at every level to understand that, regardless whether you're in housekeeping or you're a steward in the kitchen, right? You always should be seeking to make yourself more valuable. And one very important way to do that is to build the skills that are in your own toolkit. And that creates opportunities to move up, move across, learn, and do different things. But I don't know that we've always pitched it as well as we could to help them understand kind of the what's in it for me. You're asking me to do these other things. That's good for you, but what's in it for me?
Great. Thank you. So I know we've only got about 5 minutes left, but I do want to kind of close with a bit of an unfair, kind of putting you on the spot type question. So I would love to hear, because a lot of this is, Michelle, I think in particular you've said, it comes down to leadership at the end of the day. And if you had an opportunity to give a piece of advice to leaders in the hospitality space around how they should approach retention and attraction, is there one kind of nugget of advice or ask that you would make of them? So Michelle, I'll pick on you first, and then what Martin and Bryan have to say.
Yeah, and my advice would be the same today as it would have been pre-pandemic, right? You're leading a business of people, and I agree with Alex's kind of hardware software analogy. Great hoteliers understand how important their people are. They don't need me or anybody else to explain that to them. They knew that out of the gate. Unfortunately, there are many others who either don't know it or they forget it in times of financial stress. And so the first thing that goes out the window, I can tell you from experience, every time there's any kind of downturn, and we all know hospitality is a cyclical business. We ride it up, we ride it down, we deal with all the same things. We lay people off, we hire them back. And one of the first things that gets cut every time we go into a downturn is any investment in people. Training is cut, development programs are cut, tuition reimbursement is cut. Anything that has to do with people that's looked at as some sort of soft expense in a way that I have never been able to understand is the first thing we throw out. And so it's those leaders who don't, in my view, don't understand the business that they're in. Right? Because you can't, especially if you're a luxury hotel, by definition, you are in the service business. And you cannot give great service if you're not taking care of your people. And it's just that simple. And I feel sometimes like I've been trying to explain that to people for my entire career. And I don't really understand the why of that. And many leaders get it. So kudos to them, but there's some that still have a long way to go.
Can I bounce back here, Michelle? When the crisis happened, exactly what you said. Okay, we're going to lay off. It's like, no, let's go, and I'm going to approve every single invoices that we're going to pay. And there's a lot of things that you can find in the background that we are paying because we're paying for ages, and it keeps rising. We made some massive changes, and at the opposite, we decided to look at our business model and decided to change our. In some hotels, the housekeeping was outsourced. We decided to change completely this, so we have the control of it. We can deliver a better service. This is the most important thing in luxury is your software. I cannot repeat this enough. And it doesn't mean you need to give more money. You just need to manage it well. And that's the solution. And that's why those luxury operators are successful. This is when they have the right software. Thanks,
Alex. Martin, your advice?
Yeah, look, staff and employees are a high cost to any business, but ultimately they're the greatest asset. You've got, well, I always hear about people, quality, and profit, and which comes first. I believe people has to come first. Otherwise, you're not going to deliver that quality. You can't develop that profit. So look after the people first, and the quality, the profit should follow suit. And from a leadership point of view, by doing that, by just caring for people, for me, it's as simple as that.
Great, thank you. And Bryan.
Yeah, quite similar to what Martin and Michelle have said. Personally, to me, I just think sort of effective leadership. I think you've got to sort of have a sort of shared vision, if you like, of where you're going, sort of on a journey and on the road, and sort of you know, if everything's performing, sort of bringing to life what success can look like, and letting the team feel that sort of success and buzz, and then sort of all going for it together, you know. But I think 100% by keeping people at the heart of every organisation and everything that you do is the sort of key to success, because without it, like I said before, I don't think it just wouldn't work.
Great. Well, hopefully many people will be heeding your advice. So thank you for that. We need to end on that note, but thank you very much for your input, insights, opinions. It's a huge, challenging area, which we've only really scratched the surface, but hopefully our audience got something out of it. So thank you very much indeed for your time, and see you anon. Alex,